So now that you've done some research, you're trying to think about what you want to talk about. It can be overwhelming. The good news is we are not writing an essay. This is not English class. We are going to not focus in on every single word. That's far too many to remember for a speech. We're going to take the pressure off. We're going to focus in on our ideas and then just talking about those ideas. So what we are going to do instead of writing an essay is to create an outline. We're going to organize our ideas and our thoughts. We're going to make points and back them up. So this video is going to explain how to outline as well as how to organize those main points into a clear format that will be easy for you to remember. Why bother with outlines? First of all, it helps you visualize your ideas or conceptualize your ideas better. It's easier to organize and move your ideas or your points around when you're just jotting down ideas. You can get help from other people. Your groups will be helping you. It is a course requirement. Learning how to properly outline is a course requirement. So you are graded on a proper outline, and are you demonstrating proper outlining skills? It also allows you to verify that you have organized your main points in a way that makes sense, that's logical, that's easy to understand, that's clear. And it's also helpful for you to be able to verify that you have your research included in your speech. It's much easier to give a speech from an outline than it is a written essay. We will learn more about manuscripts in our delivery section. Again, we are not writing essays. There is no body paragraphs. We're not focusing in on a bunch of words. We're focusing in on the ideas and communicating the ideas. It really does take the pressure off. So here is a brief sample outline. I have the skeleton format attached to your speech assignment. It's in this organizing folder. I have a speech packet posted with your informative speech assignment that's like a guide that walks you through. And I have sample outlines posted that other students have done. So there's lots of examples for you of what an outline is going to look like. We have 3 parts of a speech. We have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So we have those 3 distinct parts, and we want the audience to be able to follow and identify when you're done with the introduction, when you're moving to the body, when are you moving to your conclusion. We want those to be really clear. And within the body, then we have main points, A, B, C, possibly D, with supporting material. Your evidence would be your subpoints. Each one of these main points is going to be a name. You're going to name each main point, and then you're going to have your material to back it up. Here are the basic principles of outlining. You want your main points to be basically about the same weight or about the same amount of information. You don't really want a main point with 2 subpoints and then another main point that has 8. It's really out of balance. So we want them to be somewhat equally weighted as far as the amount of information you're sharing. You have at least 2 items per level. So if you have a 1, you have to have a 2. If you have an A, you have to have a B. It's part of how we break out information. We want to use parallel word structure with our main points. We want to word our main points for the listener. How are they going to remember your main points? So you want it to be clear, easy to understand. You word them in the same way. I have an example here on this slide on how it would be parallel in word structure. But even wording them like with an acronym or they all start with the same consonant sound, we want to name our main points in a way that's easy for the audience to listen. They can't read your speech. They can't go back and reread a paragraph like they can in an essay. So we really are outlining and creating structure for the listener in your audience. You're going to use standard outlining numbering, which is alternating numbers, letters, numbers, letters, numbers, letters. That's what it looks like. So we're going to start out with Roman numerals. So we have a Roman numeral 1 here. Our next indentation would be A, all capital letters. Then we move to numbers, or these are called Arabic numbers. And then we would move to lowercase letters. So it's always numbers, letters, numbers, letters. I don't have any bullet points. There's no asterisks. There's no check marks. I'm not even getting into the little i's, the lowercase Roman numeral numbers, or the little parentheses. I'm not going that detailed. So this is your proper format. You need to follow the structure, and it needs to be numbers, letters, numbers, letters. I like good indentations. It's easier to see. I know that Roman numerals 1, 2, 3 are my main sections of my speech, my introduction, my body, conclusion. All my uppercase letters are main points. My subpoint 1 and 2, 3, 4, those are all my subpoints, and I can see that. But as you indent, that allows you visually to see where you are in your speech. Some students like to color code, which you are certainly welcome to do. For this speech, I recommend 2 or 3 main points. You determine the number of supporting material or evidence subpoints that you need, keeping in mind if you have a 1, you have to have a 2. So you might have 3 or 4 subpoints for each of your main points. That's up to you. Essentially, we're creating 3 outlines for this speech, or 3 variations. You are going to be working on what we call a rough draft or a planning outline, or sometimes a working outline. This is where you're formulating your ideas, you're trying to put them together, you might be rearranging information, and you're playing with it, right? This is your creating stage. Once you've created it, you're going to finalize it and create what we call a formal outline. It's really more detailed, right? It should be full sentences or at least full ideas. If it's not a grammatically correct sentence, as long as a full idea. The formal outline is not just 1 or 2 words. So you'll see student samples, right, of this that you can look at. But I need the gist of your speech here. If I miss something in your speech, I'm going to look at your outline as backup. And so it should be a complete idea, if not a sentence. And so it is more detailed, but it's too detailed for you to speak from. You'll end up reading it. So you'll create a speaking outline or a delivery outline where you're going to abbreviate, delete 90% of the words in your formal outline, and save it as your speaking notes. Single words, short phrases, keywords. I have tips on how to create note cards, which is what I recommend, and that will be found in your speech packet, and I will discuss that when we talk about delivery. So your outline and works cited page is submitted before you speak. In online classes, you'll be submitting it in the weekly folder as a Blackboard assignment. If you're in a classroom setting, it would be submitted in person. So it's due before you speak. Working this after your speech is over defeats the purpose. So here's just a brief example of some note cards, color coding. I would keep the same keywords and phrases, but I have lots of tips on note cards in your speech packet and in when we talk about delivery. So here's some tips on how to organize the content in the body of your speech, right? You have all these ideas. How do you group it together? Well, we already have organizational patterns that are pre-done for you. All you have to do is choose which one works best for you and the information you want to convey. So I'm showing you the 3 most popular and the ones that I recommend for your informative speech. One method is called chronological. It is organized by time. So the past, present, and future, or morning, afternoon, evening. Organizing fashion by like the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Decades or years. Talking about a sequence, first, second, third, right? We need to grocery shop for our ingredients. We combine the ingredients and then we display our meals, for example, if we were doing a cooking type of concept. Okay, so you can pick and choose. If you don't want to talk about the future, that's okay. You can talk about the past and the present. But it's a way of organizing by time. Right? So if you're talking about the history of something or you're explaining a step-by-step process, this is really good. So what I've done here, and this is in your textbook, I believe, is we've taken the topic of a Ford Mustang, and we have shown you in each one of these organizational patterns what it might look like. So your speech, the topic is all the same, but the pattern is going to allow you to convey different information, and it's really about picking the one that you like best. So if we were organizing the Ford Mustang by time, we might be talking about right, the 60s, the 80s, the 90s, and 2010. But those are all numbers and dates that are hard for us to remember. So this is really a great tip. They've organized these main points, and each one would have supporting material underneath. So it would have 1, 2, 3, 4 underneath, right? Each main point is starting with the same consonant letter, which is alliteration, and it's easier for us to remember. The Mustang revealed, the Mustang ruined, the Mustang revived, and the Mustang reborn. We are more likely to remember those points because they all start with an R. If we took the same topic and wanted to organize it by space, which would be geography, north, south, east, west, layers, top, bottom, inside, out. Doing a cake, you start with the foundation, the middle layers, the top layer, for example, right, would be spatial. Some museums are multi-floor, have east wings, west wings. That would be spatial. So here's our Ford Mustang. So to do a spatial pattern, we might talk about the exterior styling of the Mustang, the interior amenities of the Mustang, and then the engine. So we worked from the outside in. That would be an example of spatial. Topical is another organizational pattern, which is just organizing it by topic, whichever topic you prefer. So in this case, if we're wanting to talk about the Mustang and we didn't want to go by time or space, maybe we want to talk about the styling, the economy, and the performance. And those could be your main points. You would be talking about different types of things, categories, aspects, or features, or different elements of a topic. We usually like to have the best in the last point. So that's called the primacy recency effect. And sometimes that's a really good strategy. So it's not that any of these are bad methods of organization. It's just which pattern allows you to communicate the information you want to talk about. Do you prefer chronological? Do you prefer spatial? Do you prefer topical? Some of your topics will allow you to choose any of these. Some of your topics are really going to call for one of these in particular. And if you're stuck, your group can help you, or I can help you select the organizational pattern for your speech. I have a few tips here on your outlining. Did you organize and support your main points? Do you choose an organizational pattern? Right? Are you moving smoothly from one point to the next? Those are things for you to keep in mind as you're preparing your speech. So hopefully you can take all that information. You can start learning how to organize it by choosing an organizational pattern for the main points of your speech. You can even use those for your subpoints if you like, but that's not a requirement. And you've learned proper outlining format. So make sure that you're following proper outlining format. I'm grading on it.